contact the technician directly. If you do have technical problems, please use that way to approach the technician that can then help you. So for this 2 more minutes, I will wait. So I think it is 12:30 Central European time. For some of you, it is later and earlier. So welcome back to the second day of the Animals Committee meeting. I think Helen already pointed out the changes in the agenda, but before that, I would just announce that we do have a quorum. We can start the deliberations. The quorum would be 6 members from at least 4 regions, and I think we have a very good representation today. Many members and their alternates from all regions are present for this meeting, so I think this is a very good sign to start with. So the changes in the agenda, I think Helen already pointed out that we will start with agenda item 23, precious corals. The agenda items 13 and 19, we have pushed them further back because I don't think they will be very contentious. And we will see whenever we will be able to treat them. We still have a very long list today, so I will try to be very quick on the clear issues, and we will maybe not have as much discussion as we would like, but I think in the interest of getting through the agenda, where we have agreement or where there's no need to have a discussion now in plenary, I will move on quite quickly. So before we start with agenda item 23, I would like to give the floor to the Secretary to announce concerning the working group settings and the membership. So, Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good day, good evening, good morning to everyone. Yesterday, when we established 4 working groups, in-session working groups, a number of parties and organizations expressed in the chat box to have difficulties, technical difficulties in joining or expressing their interest in the working group. And so we have taken note of those circumstances, those organizations and parties, and the chair agreed that they would be added to the working groups that were created. In the case of the African lion working group, this involved Austria and conservation analytics. In the case of the working group on nomenclature, this concerned Belgium, Gabon, Sudan, Thailand, Conservation Analytics, International Association for Wildlife, and Wildlife Conservation Society. And in the case of vultures, there was Benin and Species Survival Network that expressed an interest to join this working group. Secondly, I would like to point out that executive summary of yesterday and the executive summary of the meeting of today will be published this week on the CITES website, and there you will find again the mandates and the exact composition of the different work groups, as well as any other decision that the Animals Committee has taken. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat, for that update. So without any further comments, I would start the agenda item 23 on precious corals. You have in front of you AC 31 Doc 23 and its addendum. The document by the Secretariat draws attention to the study Global Report on the Biology, Fishery and Trade of Precious Corals published by FAO. Specific sections of the report, meaning the summary and suggestions for improving management, conservation and trade, were also translated into French and Spanish and are presented in the annex to document 23. Through intersessional decision-making, the committee established an intersessional working group on precious corals with a mandate to review the study by the FAO and report to this meeting. I would now like to invite Mauro Congora as one of the co-chairs of the working group to provide a brief outline of their work and any updates. So, Mauro, you have the floor. I see there seems to be, now I see, yeah, okay. Can I give the floor to Mauro Congora, please? He did ask for the floor, please. Can you ask again for the floor? We do seem to have some problems in getting Mauro on the floor to present the results of the working group. So I do think then I will shortly try to briefly introduce the document. As you see in AC 30 COM 4 Ref by the Secretariat, you see the membership that was decided and also its mandate. And you see recommendations. They are grouped in several paragraphs on the future drafts of the FAO report, some recommendations on the conservation and sustainable use. You have a range of recommendations on international trade and as well on a way forward. So we have a range of recommendations from this working group to look at. And the Animals Committee is invited to take note of this document and its addendum and consider endorsing the revised recommendation as set out in Annex 2 to the addendum. So I would open the floor for the committee to give its view and its comments on that suggested way forward. I see North America has asked for the floor. Ezekiel, you have the floor.
The American region would like to thank the co-chairs of the Working Group on Precious Corals for AC 31 Doc 23 and its addendum on precious corals. We appreciate the report of the Intersessional Working Group on Precious Corals and fully support the Working Group recommendations in paragraph 9 of addendum to AC 31 Doc 23. Concerning the recommendations of the Animals Committee to the Secretariat in paragraph B2D, Annex 1 and 2 to the addendum, in regards to the following up on cases of illegal trade in CITES list black corals, refers to the FAO report, taking into account the already heavy load work of the Secretariat, we consider these tasks may better be undertaken by a third party, such as an external organization or consultant. With completion of the study by FAO on precious corals and the development of recommendations of the Standing Committee, Decision 17-192 Rep. Cov. 18 has been complete and no further action is needed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, North America. I think the Secretariat has taken note of these suggestions. So I see Europe. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Matthias. Very briefly, we also support the outcome of the working group and the recommendations as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would move then to Daniel Ramadori from Central South America and the Caribbean. Daniel, you have the floor.
Perdón, no sé si me escuchó.
Now we can hear.
Can you hear me? Greetings. Greetings to everyone. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the floor. I simply wish to say that the Central and South American and Caribbean region also supports the recommendations, as the previous speakers did. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I see Mauro has asked for the floor. Mauro from Central South America and the Caribbean. I see we still seem to have technical issues. Maybe that Mauro can revert to Ben from Kudo on the support website to see if he can support. And now I see him coming. Okay, looks good. Now the microphone is still muted.
Good morning.
Now it's good. Perfect.
Okay. My apologies. The internet service is very bad. Yesterday I just couldn't connect, and this morning it's better, but not where I would like it to be, so that I could communicate good with you all. But yes, in terms of the recommendations, Belize strongly supports those recommendations that are made in the document. Document 23, addendum. And I just wanted to say that a big thank you to the team, the working group that provided the recommendations and provided inputs to this, particularly to the representative of alternative representative for Asia, Seiko Terada, also to Guianto, Chile, China, and the rest of the, I don't want to go through the entire list, but a number of representatives from the various countries and different associations and organizations contributed to the preparation of this document, and I'm glad that it came up with a number of good recommendations for improved management and conservation of precious corals. And I just wanted to say that Belize fully supports these recommendations.
Thank you very much. So with this, I would just very briefly see if there is opposition to the way forward proposed so far from observer parties. I don't see any, so I think we can conclude that the outcome would be that the Animals Committee notes the information, would consider adopting the recommendations in Annex 2 of this addendum, with the exception of paragraph 2D, where the North American region proposed to ask an external entity to do that analysis. Then C, encourage the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to consider the information presented in paragraph 6 in the production of any future reports, and confirm that decision 17192 RevCop 18 on precious corals has been fully implemented. So with this, I see no opposition of this on this way forward. So this is agreed by the committee. So thank you very much. So the next agenda item is agenda item 22 on eels. The document and its addendum was prepared by the Secretariat and reports on the implementation of the decisions on eels. I would start by reminding the committee of the tasks that are directed to the Animals Committee under Decision 18200. It reads: A, if requested, consider any report submitted by parties with respect to the making of non-detriment findings for trade in European eel and provide advice and guidance as needed. To date, no such request has been received. Then B, review the report from the Secretariat on the biology of a European eel prepared under Decision 18199 paragraph B, and consider the potential use of source code R ranging for specimens of Anguilla from aquaculture production systems, and provide advice and make recommendations to the parties and the Standing Committee as appropriate. In this regard, you are referred to paragraphs 9 to 12 of the addendum. C, review available information relating to the potential risks and benefits of reintroducing seized live European eels to the wild and, if appropriate, provide advice on suitable protocols, taking into account existing guidance and practices for consideration at the 19th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. In this regard, I draw your attention to paragraph 12 of document AC 31 Doc 22, where it is suggested that the Animals Committee might start by examining existing guidance, such as the guidelines for reintroductions and other conservation translocations produced by IUCN, and Annex 1 to Resolution Conf 17.8 on disposal of illegally traded and confiscated specimens of cited listed species. And finally, D, consider the progress reports provided by parties and report by the Secretariat with respect to decisions 18197, 18198, and 18199, and make any recommendations to the 19th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. In this regard, I can draw your attention to the addendum, which summarizes the responses to the questionnaire in Annex 2 to notification to the parties 2021-018. So I will take just a few initial comments, but note that this is a large mandate. And in the interest of time, I will propose to establish an in-session working group on eels. So we will not have a thorough discussion in plenary. I will form a working group with quite a large mandate, but I think just a couple of comments if they are really relevant to the forming or to the input to the working group. So I will open the floor for comments from members of the Animals Committee. I see North America. Ezekiel, you have the floor.
The North American region, I wish to thank the Secretariat for the work on the eel questionnaire, as well as the compiling data. We also thank the 27 parties who took time to reply to the questionnaire. We support the Secretariat proposal of submitting draft decisions for consideration at COP19 as a final study call for decision 18199, paragraph D, will not be available in time for review by the Animals Committee until after the 19th COP. We support the establishment of an in-session working group on eels with respect to decision 18200. However, we find the terms of reference for this working group should be adjusted. The addendum document was not available until 21st May, which did not give parties sufficient time to review this agenda item, given its importance and to evaluate the significant amount of information and data that was provided. We also find that there is insufficient time to properly undertake this task in the proposed in-session working group that you just mentioned. We therefore recommend that the in-session working group refocus on the following issues that could be accomplished. 1, redrafting decisions for the original implementation of decision 18200 to happen post-COP19. And 2, initiate a discussion to consider the potential use of source code R ranching for specimens on Anguilla from aquaculture production systems. We sincerely hope that these suggestions will be acceptable to the parties and the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry. So I don't see so far anybody opposing to these changes to the draft, to the terms of reference. Has the Secretariat been able to capture the changes to them, Secretariat? Or should North America repeat them?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would be better if North America repeats them once more. But if I understand, yeah, we prefer to have it repeated once more so we can note it down carefully. Thank you.
Okay, so please give the floor again to North America. Ezekiel?
Since we see that there is insufficient time to properly undertake this task, we therefore recommend that the in-session working group refocus the following issues that could be accomplished. 1, redrafting decisions for the original implementation of decision 18200 to happen post-COP19, and to initiate a discussion to consider the potential use of source code R for specimens of Anguilla from aquaculture production systems. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is that clear? To me, it is. Okay, so good. I see India has asked for the floor. In India, you have the floor.
Also, India would like to be a member of the working group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India, for your interest. We haven't started forming the working group. We will come back to that later. So now UK, Win Fleming, you have the floor.
Chair. Well, we certainly no objections, of course, to creating the working group or to the amendment suggested by North America. Just want to make one, and we will have comments to make in the working group in due course. We did want to make one minor comment, Chair. You mentioned that the Animals Committee had not received any requests for review and advice on non-detriment findings under the provisions of Decision 18197, paragraph A. I'd just like to say that as reported in paragraph 5 of document 22, the addendum, we have prepared a non-detriment finding for trade in European eels, and at a time after this meeting, we intend to submit that NDF to the committee for their review and advice. And perhaps this non-detriment finding might, in future, be a potential case study for consideration in a future non-detriment finding workshop under agenda item 14. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. I see AC rep from Europe, Dagmar. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Matthias. In principle, we agree with narrowing down the scope of the discussion in the in-session working group. The documents became really available rather late. At the same time, it was a bit unclear to us what exactly should be the outcome of the working group with regards to the source code R, because we are talking about the mandate for the in-session working group. So it's a bit strange to say initiate the discussion. So we should maybe ask the working group to provide recommendation of or draft recommendation of the AC on the next way for discussing, or to redraft it slightly so that it's speaking about what should be the contribution of the in-session working group towards the final decision of the Animals Committee in 2 weeks' time, and how the process then should go on towards a standing committee or the COP. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we should I haven't read out the terms of reference, but to that part, I think we might add initiate discussion on the potential use and make recommendations to Animals Committee as appropriate. So it will be up to the working group to see whether it will and can make any recommendations for the time being to be put forward to the COP. So just to be clear for the mandate, for the terms of reference, I will read them out as I see them now. I will try to do that and see whether they are in conflict with the comments from North American region, to be sure. So instead of review the information in paragraphs 9 to 12 of the addendum and the summary of the responses, it would read redraft decision 18200 consider redrafting decision 18200 to make sure that the work on eels is continued post-conference COP18. I think that was the intention. I don't have the good wording now. Then 2, initiate discussion on the potential use of source code R for specimens of anguilla and anguilla from aquaculture production systems and make recommendations to Animals Committee as appropriate. Then 3, review available information relating to the potential risks and benefits of reintroducing seized live European eels to the wild and, if appropriate, provide advice on suitable protocols taking into account existing guidance and practices. then consider the Secretariat's draft decisions in paragraph 17 of the addendum and identify other parts of decisions 18197 to 18202 that may merit a renewal or extension. I don't know if this part is being replaced by the suggestion from North American region. I'm not quite clear here yet what that has as an implication. I will revert back to the Secretariat to give its view on that. And draft recommendations directed to the Standing Committee and the Conference of the Parties for the Animals Committee to consider. So that last part is already pretty wide, and also the paragraph 4 to look at the decisions 18197 to 18202 may already include what the North American region has suggested. So with this, I would like to ask the Secretariat if my understanding or my confusion is the same, or if you have a way out here. Secretariat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we also consider that actually by adopting this broader revision of all the decisions on eels, the concern of the United States, of the North American region to pay particular attention to 18200 is taken on board. We understand what North America does not want to get involved with is to review the information in the addendum and the summary responses, because it's too much, and that in a redrafted decision this will be extended beyond COP19.
Okay, so this would mean that we strike the first term of reference and keep the term of reference 4 to look at all these decisions and see which ones do we continue post COP20 COP19, and that would address the concerns and would allow the North American region to give its views in that working group. Can North America live with this suggestion? I don't see any concerns there, so I think that's the way we will proceed. So this would it mean that we do not consider the first terms of reference to look at to review the information in paragraphs 9 to 12 and in the addendum, and just start with initiate a discussion on the potential use of source code R and make recommendations as appropriate. So that would then, I think, take care of the concerns raised. I don't see anybody asking for the floor. So with this, I think I see Canada. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think in the recommendations and the suggestions from North America, we were also, Canada would not like to see that last recommendation for the Animals Committee to make recommendations on all that information to the Standing Committee or the COP. So Canada would support making recommendations on source code R, but and we would support the decisions, redrafting the decisions of the work that was not completed. But I think what we wouldn't support trying to make recommendations beyond the source code R based on all that information provided in the addendum. So if we could just clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So you would not want recommend terms of reference at the moment 5, so draft recommendations directly to the Standing Committee and the Conference of the Parties for the Animals Committee to consider. So you would not want this working group to do that. Do I see comments on that suggestion? To my view, I don't really know what then comes out of that working group and from the Animals Committee. I mean, if the working group sees issues that it might want to bring to the attention of the Standing Committee and the COP, it would be the possibility to do so. And if we have information in these documents that might be of interest for the Standing Committee, I don't really see the problem if we would flag this information to the Standing Committee. So I'm a bit puzzled why this shouldn't be possible. But I would like to hear. I see Europe. Dagmar, you have asked for the floor. Yes, Dagmar.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matthias. It always has a slight delay before I can switch on the mic. Yeah, I think at this time it might be useful to keep the mandate slightly open so that the working group can decide on what recommendations to propose, understanding that it would not be expected to analyze the content of the information and bring forward substantive recommendations, but rather recommendations on the process for the COP to decide. And let me use this opportunity to indicate that the Netherlands has problems with connection and they want to become part of the working group.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dagmar. Any other comments from members? Yes, I see North America. You have the floor.
To reiterate that one concrete outcome of this group.
Hesika, could you restart because you usually start speaking before we can hear you. So please, can you restart?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate that one concrete outcome of this in session working group is to have a set of redraft decisions for implementation of decision 18200 to happen post COP19, and also the discussions on the use of the potential use of Code R. Those are concrete outcomes from this group, and in the understanding that there is no time to read this very long 70 pages annex at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, North America. You know, I think it doesn't prevent us. I mean, if in the discussion on source code R, we do see something that we would like to flag for Standing Committee, then it would be good to have that possibility to do so. But we are not forced to do so. So I would suggest to leave that paragraph in the terms of reference, and if in the working group there is agreement to do something along those lines, then it can be done. Otherwise, if there's agreement that there is nothing to be reported or recommended to the Standing Committee, then that is fine as well. I just would like to keep that possibility open for the working group to look at. So with this, I think I would say that we go along those lines, and the working group can work with that mandate. So now it's to form that working group. I would like to ask now members first to initiate to indicate their interest in participating in the working group by pushing the button. I see Europe, Japan. Japan is, sorry, we are still looking at members of the Animals Committee. So all the parties that are not members should withdraw their button. So I have Africa and Europe from the Animals Committee. Good, then party observer parties. I see Korea, Canada, UK, Portugal, Japan, New Zealand, US, Netherlands, France, Spain. Okay, no more party observers. China has come up also. I think I did have Portugal, right? Good, okay. So you can clean the list. And I would like to ask for observer organizations. I see CITES FAO. First, quickly to count, how many parties and members do we have?
I'm sorry, we had 13.
Okay, good. So those that have announced here now, observer organizations, it is 10, so that fits pretty well. That would make it CITES, FAO, IUCN, SSN, double, CMS, Global Garden Trust, Traffic, Association of Northeastern Fish, and I don't know what follows, but I think we know who that is. And finally, Traffic. So we do have 10 observer organizations. Okay. So this settles that, and we can we have set up that working group, and we can move on to the next agenda item, which is tortoises and freshwater turtles. Document AC31, Doc 35, and the addendum to it were prepared by the Secretariat. It presents the work implemented under Decision 18288 to develop a guide on categories of turtle parts and derivatives in trade. Decision 18291 now directs the Animals Committee to review the guide and make recommendations for consideration by the Secretariat. The guide underwent various rounds of review during its development, including by the Secretariat, experts, and representatives from IQWIC partner agencies. The guide is available in the annex to the addendum, and I trust the committee members and parties had an opportunity to work through it in detail. I would like to open now the floor for any comments on I see somebody has a... No, he hasn't. I would like to ask the members for their comments. Yes, please. North America, you have the floor.
Fast. I'm not sure where we are and which document are you referring to. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I refer to agenda item 35. Okay, I skipped the sharks. I went too fast. I should first start with the sharks in order. Sorry about that.
Right.
So please disregard what I said about the turtles. We will come back to them in a minute or in a couple of minutes. So first, sharks and rays, document AC25. So the document and addendum by the Secretariat presents an analysis of the CITES trade data on sharks and rays and provides information on reports, identification materials, and publications that may be relevant for the implementation of Resolution 12.6 on conservation and management of sharks. Annex 2 of the document provides responses to notification to the parties 2020 number 16. AC31 Inf 9 Ref 1 provides a summary of the responses to the notification. So I would like to invite the Animals Committee to take note of document AC31 Doc 25 and its addendum. I do propose that we will have an in-session working group on sharks and rays I will just take some initial comments, because I think we will have a lot of time to work on this issue and to discuss it in the in-session working group. As you can see in the addendum, there is a mandate for such an in-session working group in paragraph 16a. But due to time constraints, there will be some changes to that mandate. But first, I would like to open the floor for some comments. And I see that the AC rep from Oceania, Hugh Robertson, has asked for the floor. You have the floor. I think you should request the floor. I think something didn't work out quite well. Now we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Matthias. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Hyung Jong Kim as the CITES Marine Officer, as the replacement for Daniel Cashel-Rees, who served us very well in the past. And I'd like to thank the Secretariat very much for presenting these papers. And a special thanks to the intern, Madeline Hiscock, for summarising the responses from 20 parties and one IGO to notification 2020-16, which appears now as bullet points in InfDoc 9, which is a very useful summary for us. I'd also like to draw the attention of people to InfDocs 15 and 18 regarding sharks. So yeah, do check your InfDocs list, because these useful documents are in there. At AC 30, the Animals Committee was concerned at discrepancy in the reported trade of sharks in the CITES trade database and what shark specialists knew were the likely levels of trade. And I certainly welcome the analysis of the commercial trade in sharks and rays in AC 31.25 and the update in the addendum. I remain concerned that there's still a gap, seems still to be a gap, with only 345 commercial trade transactions reported in the database to date, of which I noticed that only 4 relate to introduction from the sea, and all of those were reported by South Korea, and I find it hard to believe that shark products weren't introduced from the sea from CITES listed species over that period. Many of the 8 decisions given to us at the last conference of the parties will need to be rolled over or revised and updated and expanded to incorporate some of the new information that's come in from InfDoc 9 or the notification 2020-16 and also from InfDocs 15 and 18. But finally, CITES sharks present some new challenges for us, especially for doing NDFs. And some useful examples exist in the CITES website, but would also make really good case studies for any future NDF workshop under agenda item 14.1. So I think looking at how sharks could contribute to that NDF workshop would be a valuable addition to the mandate of the working group. Thank you very much.
Any other members of the Animals Committee asking for the floor? I don't see any, so I will just I see Central South America and Caribbean asking for the floor. So Daniel, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. The region would like to say that we need to keep continuing working on the information that's been presented by the parties and continue with this so that we can have guides and guidelines on the NDFs so that we support the formation of a working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other members of the Animals Committee? I don't see any, so I will just take two parties, and then I think we will be able to move to the working to the mandate and then the formation of the working group. I see that there are a lot of parties now asking for the floor, and I beg your indulgence that we will not have a substantive discussion in plenary, because that will really take place in the working group. So I will just take the two first parties to sense whether they are in agreement with forming the working group, and then I will move on to the working group itself, as we don't have the time to have a substantive discussion in plenary now. So Costa Rica and China I will take. So Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Buenos días, señor presidente.
Good day, Chair, and greetings to everyone present. As it's the first time that we're speaking, we'd like to congratulate the Secretariat and the Animals Committee and the working group who prepared this document. Costa Rica welcomes and thanks all the parties for their contributions on information related to sharks and rays, and all the work that will be done to ensure that legal and sustainable trade can continue. Sharks and rays are one of the most threatened groups in the world, and CITES needs to ensure that those species that are included in the appendices are suitably managed. When it comes to the implementation and the development, and we've had a great deal of success, parties have raised concerns in how NDFs can be drawn up on species with few data available. And this is reflected in the paragraph of the decision 28.3. And we think that in the virtual format there have been proposals for the working group's mandate. However, as Costa Rica, we request urgently that the recommendation is not forgotten, and that the working group from the Animals Committee be included in forthcoming meetings of the AC, and we'd like to be part of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. So I see that the Animals Committee representative from Central South America and Caribbean, Daniel Ramadori, has asked for the floor again. So Daniel, you have the floor, and then I will move on to China and then close the list. So yes, please, Daniel.
No, señor presidente, disculpe, debo haber...
Chair, my apologies, I must have pressed the wrong button.
No worries. So China, you have the floor.
I would like to thank the Secretary for preparing this document. According to the analysis taken by the Secretary based on CITES trade database on commercial trade in CITES-listed sharks and rays since 2000, trade reported as continued to increase, which might indicate an improved implementation globally. And these increases are mainly associated with trade in fins, representing 83% of the volume trade in 2018. As we know, according to FAO and regional fisheries management organizations' management measures, the shark fins landed were limited to 5% of the total shark capture. As the shark fin consumption was decreased sharply in recent years, the recorded shark fin trade volume does not match the meat and body volume. Here, we would like to reiterate the resolution 12% of the convention to enhance the comprehensive implementation on listed shark species and to study the international trade flows in northern products such as meat, cartilage, and skin. Meanwhile, due to the difficulty of making NDF, we are much appreciated that the Secretary would continue developing guidance to support the making of non-detriment funding for CITES listed shark species, in particular in data core, monkey species, small-scale, artisanal, and non-target bycatch situations. We also appreciated that relevant countries can share the successful experiences of NDF on listed shark species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, China. With this, I think I would like to read out the proposed working group mandate. It would read, taking into consideration, so the working group is asked to taking into consideration the following: the CITES trade data analysis in document AC31 Doc 25 and its addendum, the responses from parties to notification 2020-016 and its summary presented in AC Inf Doc 99 to questions A, new information on shark and ray conservation and management activities, B, the making of non-detriment findings, and D, the identification of CITES listed shark products in trade, the NDFs provided by parties to the notification, and new information on sharks and rays presented in AC 31 Doc 25 and its addendum, as well as any other relevant information. Identify decisions on sharks and rays, decisions 18218 to 18225 that may merit revisions or renewal to extend the work beyond COP19. And finally, draft recommendations to integrate the development of NDF guidance, in particular in data poor, multi-species, small-scale artisanal, migratory shared regional stocks, and non-target bycatch situations for CITES listed shark species with the NDF workshop envisaged under decision 18123, paragraph C2. So with this, the Animals Committee will then be invited to present the draft decision and recommendations of the in-session working group to the SC74 for consideration at COP18. So this is the proposal that we would want to go forward. So I open the floor for comments on that terms of reference. If there are concerns with those terms of reference, please mention them now. The floor is open for members of the Animals Committee first. I don't see any concerns raised, so I would like to open the floor for observer parties. I don't see anybody, so I think we can move further with this mandate. And I would now like to form the working group and would open the floor for interest from AC members. I have a representative of Asia, Ashgar, and I have Central, South America and Caribbean, Oceania. Any other members of the Animals Committee? Nobody from the Animals Committee, so I would like to open the floor for observer parties. So parties, please present your interest. We have the United States, Mexico, UK, Canada, Australia, Korea, UK again, Japan, Argentina, Costa Rica, the Netherlands. I see somebody has pressed the button. No, okay. Where was I? I think Costa Rica, huh? Netherlands, Indonesia, Guatemala, Kenya, Portugal, India, Gabon, Peru, Chile, Germany, Spain, Peru again, Indonesia, we have already had China, Malaysia. Okay, that makes it how many parties? And
give us a second, Mr. Chairman. Quite a number actually. It's a large, working group. Eh? 25. 25. Okay. So I would like you. Anybody I haven't called up yet can please clean the screen now that we see. I see that Bangladesh has also asked to be included. I think I didn't have Bangladesh so far. Okay, so now I would like to open the floor for interests from observer organizations. I see 21, 22. This is going to be a really big working group. Natural Resources Defense Council, WCS, FAO, IUCN, IFAW, Defenders of Wildlife, CMS Secretariat, Save Our Seas Foundation, HSI, ZSL, Conservation Analytics, WWF, Sea Shepherd Legal, EASA, Global Guardian Trust, BRT, Born Free USA, Japan and US, Florida International and US, Florida and US. No, it was Japan and US, sorry. Then Oceania Inc., Traffic, Florida International University. I think that is it. So can you please clean that screen? Yes, Secretariat, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to say that we have noted that Bangladesh was added to a party, as you recognized, but also that France expressed an interest in joining this working group via chat. And I would like to repeat that any organization or party that is unable to express its interest in joining a work group puts it in the chat. We will try to pick this up and make it and clarify this then towards the end of this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. We will just have to make sure that we keep the balance, and in case we don't, we will may have to see how we solve that problem. Okay, so Sharks and rays, I think we have set up the working group, and we can now move to agenda item 35 on what I forgot to mention is the chair of that working group. Of course, I'm grateful to Oceania, to you, Robertson, who will take up the work to chair that working group. So thank you very much to you. So agenda item 35 on tortoises and freshwater turtles. I will repeat what I said before to make sure that we are on the same page again. So the document AC31 Doc 35 presents the work implemented under decision 18288 to develop a guide on categories of turtle parts and derivatives in trade. Decision 18291 directs the Animals Committee to review the guide and make recommendations for consideration by the Secretariat. The guide underwent various rounds of review during its development, including by the Secretariat, experts, and representative of IQWiC partner agencies. The guide is available in the annex to addendum, and I trust that you have had the chance to look at it in detail. So I open the floor for comments from members to this document, and especially the guide that was developed. So North America, you have the floor.
On behalf of the North American region, we thank the Secretariat for coordinating the preparation of the identification guide to tortoise and freshwater turtles. Parts, products, and derivatives in trade include in the annex of the addendum to document AC31 Doc 35, as well as the funding provided by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to fulfill decisions 18288 and 18291 on these regards. The region also supports the creation of an in-session working group in which we express our interest in participating. Maybe also it's worth to know that inside the annex, there is a link where you can also download the guide in higher resolution, so in the case you see better pictures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, North America. I haven't mentioned that we will need a working group yet. It depends on whether there is need, if parties see a need to rediscuss this issue that has been reviewed several times now. So I will wait with this until I hear more from members and also parties. So members, you still have the floor. I don't see any member asking for the floor, so it's now observer parties who have asked, who can ask for the floor. I've seen Peru asked for the floor. Peru, do you still want to take the floor? Yes, thank you very much.
Greetings, everyone. And thank you, Chair, for giving us the floor. We would like to thank the Secretariat for having prepared this identification guide to tortoises and freshwater turtles. We consider this to be a very useful tool to manage a species that is subject to extensive trade. We would like to participate in the working group. We would also like to add that we are preparing a draft proposal hoping to include 2 species have them listed in Appendix 2 because they are subject to growing international demand. We therefore think that it would be good to regulate trade in these 2 species so that we ensure that we work for the sustainable use of these species, and we try to bring down the demand for these 2 species because that does put them under great stress. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peru. Any other party asking for the floor? I haven't seen any concerns so far in relation to this guide, and I don't know if really we will need a working group. So just keep that in mind. If you do think we need a working group, then please, I will come back to parties and members just later. Now I would like to open the floor for observer organizations. I see WCS.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. I'll be very brief, and we really welcome the contribution of the UK to support this. We work with our government and other partners in multiple countries on tortoises and freshwater turtles, including combating illegal trade in CITES-listed species. And there is growing evidence of the involvement of very well-organized criminal networks in the trafficking in these species, including from collectors, traders, etc. And we urge parties to adopt very strong measures to deter and disrupt these networks. And we think this guide will be of assistance to parties. It appears excellent. We're not sure there is a need for an in-session working group to review it. There is extremely useful information. We note some of the photos are fuzzy, but we understand a higher resolution version is available. We think that some of the photos would benefit from scale. Just because for those parties or customs officials who may not be familiar with these taxa, just to get a sense of size and scale. And we hope that a version could be made available that could be an online version and not only a downloadable PDF, so that many customs officials are only going to be able to be using this on a smartphone. But in short, we really congratulate the authors and the reviewers of this excellent guide. Again, we'd be happy to join the working group, but we're not convinced that it is needed at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, WCS. You echo my sentiments in that regard. So I don't see anybody else asking for the floor. And from what I heard, I think the Animals Committee could concur that we would request the Secretary to finalize that identification guide to tortoises and freshwater turtles, products and derivatives in trade, taking into consideration the comments and the suggestions we just heard, like scale and photos. And to make it available for use by parties, and also see if it would be possible to have an online version of that guide. So I think that's the conclusion I would draw from our discussion now. Does anybody disagree with my suggestion? I don't see anybody, so I think that's what the Animals Committee has decided on that matter. So thank you very much. The next agenda item on the list is agenda item 16, identification and traceability of sturgeons and paddlefish. Document AC31 Doc 16 was prepared by the Secretariat and presents the terms of reference for the study called for in Decision 16136 Ref Cop 18, identification of species and hybrids, source and geographical origin of sturgeon and paddlefish, specimens and products in trade, which World Wildlife Fund, WWF Austria, has secured funding to undertake. You will recall that terms of reference for the study were revised by the Animals Committee by postal procedure and finalized in consultation with the chair based on comments received from the members. The addendum to the document contains in its annex the draft study prepared by WWF Austria. The Animals Committee is invited to review that study and make recommendations as appropriate for consideration by the Standing Committee at its 74th meeting. So with this, I would like to open the floor for comments from the members of the Animals Committee. So Animals Committee members, you have the floor. I see North America has asked for the floor. Ezekiel, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, the North American region recognize and appreciate the good work of WWF Austria in securing funding for the study on identification of species, subspecies, source and origin of sturgeons and paddlefish species and specimens, Accipes informes SPP, in trade, as direct in Decision 16136, RevCop 18, working in collaboration with leading sturgeon experts. We support the recommendation that the Animals Committee review the report and recommend that an in-session working group be formed to do so with the goal of preparing recommendations for consideration by the Standing Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, North America. I see Europe. You have the floor. Dagmar, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Regarding sturgeons and paddlefish, we agree that the terms of reference for the study has been met, and even though there is always space to discuss further, we think that this working group really delivered a good outcome. So we are open to discussing further in an in-session working group, but at the same time we think that it may not even be needed. We have just one or two minor comments on the text. The study suggests that some addition to the resolution conf 12.7 as revised by COP17, and in the points small 1 and 2, we suggest to delete certain just 2 words. So the point 1 reads that marking should be more standardized and particular specification for the design of labels are given. So we just suggest to delete the word more, so not more standardized, but simply standardized. And then the second addition, which is proposed for the resolution 12.7, is the small 2, that labels are centrally produced by companies authorized by the National CITES Management Authority. So we feel that the word centrally is not necessary. So it would only read that labels are produced by companies authorized by the National CITES Management Authority. And with these 2 very minor changes, we would be ready to agree to the additions and the way forward as proposed without the need to form an in-session working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Europe. Any other member asking for the floor? I don't see anybody, so I would then move on to observer parties. So parties, you have the possibility to take the floor. I see Switzerland. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank the authors of this extensive and comprehensive study, which gives a very useful overview of methods that can be applied when we are looking at certain issues in relation to trade in sturgeons and paddlefish, as well as their products. For us, as a management authority, forensic methods such as fatty acid profiling and especially stable isotope analysis is at the core of the kind of questions we need to address in order to determine whether a product such as caviar is of legal origin or not. From our own experience, we can say that while this is an extremely powerful tool to make use of, it comes with its complications and limitations, and has been described in the study. and access to one of the few laboratories that is able to perform this analysis is the key point for us here. We would therefore encourage the Animals Committee to request the Secretariat to issue a notification that asks parties to reach out to laboratories within their country and inform the Secretariat about capacities to conduct such analysis, as well as to collect information on readiness to analyze samples and then publish this on the secure part of the CITES website. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Switzerland. Any other party asking for the floor? Observer party, I see the UK has asked for the floor. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think we would just like to agree with the point made by the representative for Europe. We think this is a good report, provides a lot of useful information, and from our perspective, we don't see any need to discuss this further in an in-session group. I think we would be happy to see this report endorsed by the Animals Committee, essentially as it is, and perhaps as the Secretariat suggested, it could be referred to the Standing Committee Working Group on the labelling system for trading caviar to inform and support their deliberations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. Any other party asking for the floor? I don't see anybody, so I would then open the floor for observer organizations. I see WWF.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can see you, but can hear you.
You should be able to see. Yes, here I am.
No, very good.
So, first of all, thank you to you, Chair, and to the Secretariat and to the various working group chairs for all of the hard work in organising this meeting in this new format, and well done so far on the way it has been coordinated. Regarding this study, we commend the authors and we're very pleased to have been associated with this project, and we're pleased that the committee is content to accept it by and large as is, without the need for an intersessional working group, although we would recommend that Switzerland's suggestion be taken on board in the conclusions. We'd just like to underline the importance of this issue because there is a widespread perception that with the switch in reported trade from wild taken to aquacultured specimens, there isn't any conservation risk associated with the trade anymore. However, we published a recent report that highlighted that illegal trade continues, posing both a conservation risk and often defrauding consumers. And we will elaborate on this point at the Standing Committee, but for now we would ask this committee to keep it in mind. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, WWF. Just a reminder also for myself that we should not speak too fast, as the translators, they have a problem if we go on too fast. So please I would like to remind everyone to be concise, but also not too fast. So with this, I give the floor to IWMC, and then I will conclude. IWMC, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, de me donner la parole. Je m'exprimerai aussi au nom.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the floor. I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Petrosian, the caviar specialist, as well. I have a question, in fact. We have no objection to there not being an IWG on this issue. We would like to know, however, what has happened to the working group that was set up by the Standing Committee. Our organizations have been registered for the working group, but since we expressed our interest in it, we've had no news whatsoever. We don't know who's chairing that working group, for instance, so we would be grateful for any information that the Secretariat might be able to provide. Thank you, sir.
See, as I cannot talk for the standing committee, I will probably defer that question shortly to the secretariat, who can maybe advise what is with this working group. So, secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Standing Committee Working Group on Labeling, caviar labeling specifically, is chaired by Canada and has been started operating. But of course, they are waiting for your advice, Animals Committee's advice on this on this document, on this study, because it will greatly assist, I believe, also the Standing Committee Working Group in understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the labeling system that is now in place, which are extensively examined in the report that WWF provided. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. So from what I've heard, I haven't seen very much support for having an in-session working group to work on that document. It has rather been suggested that the Animals Committee instructs the Secretariat to make the document available to this Standing Committee working group that we just mentioned, as the document itself is self-explanatory and seems to be sufficiently clear, and therefore to submit that to the working group. And finally, also that the suggestion by Switzerland be taken on board by the Secretariat to see whether it is possible to issue a notification to ask parties to indicate laboratories who are in a position to do such analysis, because for management authorities it's really sometimes difficult to know where to go if you have a problem like that. I see North America has asked for the floor. North America, you have the floor.
We can agree on your proposed way forward to address this issue. We no need for this in-session working group. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, North America. I see Secretariat has asked for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to remind you that the representative of Europe has proposed two minor amendments to the report, which we have noted and which we believe could also be considered by the Animals Committee in your conclusion of the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you are right. I forgot these changes, and I think I haven't seen anybody who had disagreement with these changes. So to make sure that I think the Secretariat has found them and has clear view of what they are. So there's no need to repeat them. So thank you very much. So this is also a conclusion we can put forward. So I don't see anybody else asking for the floor. So this concludes agenda item 16. And we would now come to agenda item 24 on marine turtles. The document by the Secretariat presents progress on the implementation of Decision 18-210, including the study, status, scope, and trends of the legal and illegal international trade in marine turtles, its conservation impacts, management options, and mitigation priorities, which was presented as COP 18 in document 18. The three main sections of the study are presented in Annex 3 to the document 24. Annex 2 of the document presents a review of the study and draft recommendations by one of the co-leads on marine turtles of the Animals Committee. The addendum to document 24 by the Secretariat presents a summary of the scientific information in responses to notification to the parties 2020-035 and presents the responses in Annex 2. Annex 1 of the addendum presents amendments to the recommendations by the co-lead on marine turtles to reflect the changes in meeting schedules for consideration by the Animals Committee. So I would like to invite the Animals Committee to take note of document AC 31, Doc 24 and its addendum. I would like to hear, for in particular, the views of the members on the amended recommendations in Annex 1 of the addendum, and if the Animals Committee can agree on them, or if there are changes needed. So I would open the floor for Animals Committee members. I see Oceania rep, Hugh Robertson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very important study of the legal and illegal international trade in marine, and the Standing Committee asked the Animals Committee to sort of review the scientific aspects of that study. The study was done by Marine Research Foundation, Traffic and WWF with funding from Australia, EU and USA. And it did in situ assessments in 8 countries over 3 geographical regions, which were East Africa, Central America and Southeast Asia. Now the decisions adopted at COP18 covered many of the recommendations in the report, but it wasn't clear at that time how many other countries face similar issues, or whether they face completely different issues. So in the response to the notification to the parties 2020-035, elicited a response from 8 other countries not included in that original study. And those responses, as you mentioned, are given in Annex 2 of Doc 24. I think an in-session working group could usefully examine the initial review of that comprehensive report to see if indeed I'd actually captured all the key features, and also to look at those responses to the notification to see whether there was anything new that came out from those other 8 countries that weren't included in the original review. So I would support the establishment of an intersessional or in-session working group just to look at those 2 particular issues. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Oceania. North America, you have the floor.
On behalf of the North American region, I would like to thank the Secretariat for AC 31.24, its addendum, and Annex 3, the Secretariat's study on the legal and illegal international trade in marine turtles. We appreciate preliminary review of this study draft and draft recommendations present in Annex 2, as well as the updated revised draft in Annex 1 of the addendum of this document. We support the recommendation that the Animals Committee consider the update review of the marine study and the draft recommendations present in Annex 1 of the addendum, and submit recommendations for consideration by the Standing Committee. In fulfillment of this objective, the North American region supports the creation of an in-session working group on marine turtles to undertake these activities, as also suggested by the representative of Oceania. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, North America. Any other member of the Animals Committee asking for the floor? I don't see any, so I open the floor for observer parties. I see Costa Rica has asked for the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Definitivamente.
Very much. On behalf of Costa Rica, we'd like to congratulate the working group for producing this document. We consider that the current impact on illegal trade in products and derivatives of marine turtles is a priority matter for countries, and we approve and agree with the recommendations made, and the Animals Committee should introduce a new decision to maintain this so that we can tackle trafficking in marine turtles, and we'd be happy to be part of such a working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. I see Argentina. Argentina, you have the floor, sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. As it's the first time we are speaking, I would like to thank the Secretariat for organising this meeting and thank you for leading it so well. We would like to agree with that which has been said by Costa Rica. We think it's extremely important that this working group be set up. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Argentina. So I have broad agreement that there's the view that we need to look at the recommendations as they are in the addendum and also the new information available. So I think we will form a working group with the following mandate. Consider the review of the marine turtle study and draft recommendations by the co-lead of the agenda item presented in Annex 1 of the addendum AC31 Doc 24 and any scientific information in the responses from parties to notification 2020-015 in Annex 2 of the addendum and revise the draft recommendations in Annex 1 to the addendum of AC31 Doc 24. The Animals Committee will be invited to endorse and present the revised recommendations by this working group to SC74. So with this, I see somebody else has asked for the floor. I think if it is not really central to the work, then I would like to ask. Thank you, WWF. So with this, I would like to form the working group and would like to ask which members of the Animals Committee would like to be part of this working group. So please press your request floor button. I see AC nomenclature. I see Central, South America, and Caribbean. Daniel Ramadori. I see representative of Asia, Ashgar. And Hugh Robertson from Oceania. So now I would ask for observer parties to indicate their interest. I see Costa Rica, United States, Indonesia, France, Canada, Argentina, Japan, UK, Peru, China, Malaysia, Madagascar, and initially there was also a part that I didn't see that I couldn't keep.
Australia.
Australia, right. Okay, that makes a total of
18.
18. Okay. Now I would like to open the floor for interest from observer organizations. I see FAO, IUCN, Sea Shepherd Legal, CMS Secretariat, WWF, HSI, SSN, Global Guardian Trust, Fauna and Flora International, Traffic. I think that's it. Okay, the working group will be chaired by Arvin Diezmos from Central South America and the Caribbean. And you will be informed on the way forward as soon as we have the schedule and the place and time. Okay. With this, I can close the item on marine turtles. Or do you have any? Is there any concern, Secretariat? I see.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think that Arvin, the representative of Asia, has not actually announced his participation in this working group, so it would be difficult to designate him as chair.
Okay. So I would like to see whether Arvin Diezmos is of course from Asia, and if he would want to join the working group. I see him asking for the floor. So Arvin, you have the floor.
To take a co-lead of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Cambodia has also asked for the floor. Is this in relation to the working group? Did you want to become member of the working group? In that case, I think we can add you to the list. So I think if that is all right with you, you will be added to the list of participants to the working group. So you can, thank you very much. So that clears it. So perfect. I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is seahorses. The document, and this is agenda item 26. The document and its addendum by the Secretariat present progress on the implementation of Decision 18229 directed to the Secretariat and presents the responses to notification to the parties 2020-015 in Annex to document AC31 Doc 26. It notes that the study is being undertaken by Project Seahorse that incorporates the provision of Decision 18229, paragraph CI. The addendum notes that the Secretariat did not secure external resources to organize an expert workshop called for in Decision 18229, paragraph CII, and the study that will form the basis of the workshop may not be completed until 2022. To continue this work beyond COP19, draft decisions are proposed in paragraph 6 of the addendum to renew activities for which work is either ongoing or could not yet be completed. Decisions 18229, paragraph CII and D, as well as 18232 and 18233. I would like to invite the Animals Committee to take note of this document and its addendum, and would like to hear the views of the committee on the decisions to put forward to bring the COP19 to continue the work that has not been able to be completed. So I open the floor for comments for Animals Committee members. I see North America. North America, you have the floor.
The North American region wishes to express our appreciation to Secretariat for document 26, the addendum to this document, and Annex 1 on seahorses. We are grateful for the progress that has been made to date to implement Decision 18229, paragraphs A and B. Given the challenges over the last year, we understand the Secretariat's inability to implement Decisions 18229, paragraphs C, Roman 2, and D, 18232 and 18233 before COP19. We continue to support the activities called for these decisions, including a study in the trade of seahorses and organization of an expert workshop to discuss the implementation and enforcement of CITES for trade in seahorses. Therefore, we fully support the draft decisions in paragraph 7 of the addendum on document 26, which allow this important work to be undertaken. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, North America. I see Central, South America, and Caribbean. Daniel, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to indicate the support for what has been said. And as the representative of the North America region has said, the draft decision presented in paragraph 7, not in paragraph 6, I think there's a mistake in the documents that were presented in the addendum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. That has been taken due note of. Thank you very much for that correction, and also to North America for pointing it out already before. So any other member of the Animals Committee wishing to take the floor? So observer parties, you have the floor. And observer organizations. Yes, I see two times Peru. So who would want to take the floor from Peru? Okay, we have one Peru representative that will take the floor. You have the floor, Peru. No, sorry, we can't hear you. No. I see the other representative from Peru asking for the floor. Maybe we can give the floor to Fabiola Núñez from Peru. Peru, you have the floor.
Can you hear me now? Thank you very much, Chair. We'd like to thank the Secretariat for the preparation of the document 26 and its addendum. Since the year of 2004, Peru has prohibited harvesting and trade in seahorses because we, as a precautionary measure, set up a permanent ban, and that is why there have been no non-detriment findings made. However, despite the existing regulations, seahorse capture is still being registered, mainly through bycatch by artisanal fishers. Therefore, we have carried out data collection in various regions of the country on the perceptions of the artisanal fishers on bycatch and the trade in seahorses. We think it's relevant to progress in the implementation of the decisions adopted at the COP and to build greater cooperation between parties so that we increase knowledge on the biological, ecological and population aspects, and therefore have more alternatives to guarantee that there is legal and sustainable trade in seahorses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peru. So I don't see anybody else asking for the floor, so I think we have agreement, and the Animals Committee recommends that the decisions, the draft decisions in paragraph 7 of the addendum are being proposed to the Standing Committee. Or, yes, to the Standing Committee, right? No. Yes, to Standing Committee 74, and then onward submission to the COP19. That's the correct process. I'm getting a bit confused sometimes about all these processes. So I think that's the conclusion of the Animals Committee on this agenda item 26. So thank you very much. And we can move on now to agenda item 31 on Bangai cardinalfish. I would like to bring the attention of the committee to document AC 31, Doc 31, Ref 1, which has been submitted by Indonesia. And I would like to give Indonesia the floor to briefly introduce that document. So Indonesia, if you could ask for the floor to present the document. Thank you very much. So Indonesia has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We understand that the document is on website, but please allow Indonesia to take this opportunity to present a brief summary of document 31. Through the document, Indonesia would like to inform the Animals Committee that we have made significant progress on conservation and management of Bangai cardinalfish, especially since AC 30. Indonesia has developed and implemented the Bangai cardinalfish National Action Plan. We conducted population surveys and found that the density of this fish is relatively stable and even displays upward trends in several observation points. And there was no significant difference between the population in control sites and that within the MPA. We will carry out the tree survey in October 2021, which will be conducted in conjunction with the genetic field study survey. The T3 survey result will be used to determine microhabitat rehabilitation and/or restocking sites. Restocking activities have taken into account recommendations of AC 29 to minimize the genetic mixing, for which we developed the Propogon Cardani rehabilitation guidelines. To protect the species and its microhabitats, we enforce harvest control based on MPA zones, meaning that the harvesting activity is prohibited within the MPA no-take zones. Indonesia has introduced harvest quota, utilization mechanism, and business registration. Based on the result of the population surveys, the government of Indonesia issued a ministerial decree which decides that the harvest quota is 63,380 individuals. The utilization and trade of Bangai cardinalfish will require the fish utilization permit, harvest quota permit, and fish transport permit. This arrangement will make Bangai cardinalfish a non-appendix species that actually applies CITES trade mechanisms. Considering aforementioned progress and achievement, Indonesia would like to recommend the Animals Committee to take note that this document is in accordance with the AC 30 recommendations and appreciate Indonesia's efforts, which, as explained in this report, have resulted in many positive outcomes of Bangai cardinalfish protection, conservation, and management. Lastly, acknowledging the current status of Bangai cardinalfish as a non-CITES list species and referring to significant progress made by Indonesia, we recommend the committee to agree that Bangai cardinalfish should not be discussed further anymore in future CITES meetings. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Indonesia, for presenting the document and its contents and recommendations from the document. I would like now to open the floor for Animals Committee members to comment on the document. I see Europe has asked for the floor. Europe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Well, many of you may remember that these discussions started after COP17, when the EU presented a listing proposal for Bangai cardinalfish, which was then discussed and finally withdrawn and replaced by a set of decisions. We are really pleased that this process has led to substantive improvement in the management of the species in Indonesia. While the real impact of recently introduced management measures on the population will still need to be monitored and confirmed, and we are pleased to hear from Indonesia that a study is envisaged for later this year, we are confident that Indonesia has made an important progress in conservation of this species, which, as they also said, is a non-CITES species. We therefore believe that this case can serve as a best practice example under the ongoing review of marine ornamental fishes for establishing management for potential future listings of marine ornamental fish. And we will discuss this under agenda item 36 later today. We therefore invite Indonesia to share this experience as a best practice example in the process under Decision 18297 on marine ornamental fishes. And with these observations, we can agree to the proposed recommendations and to concluding the discussion on Bangai cardinalfish in CITES, at least for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Europe. I see North America has asked for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the North American region, I wish to thank Indonesia for document 31, Rep 1 on Bangai cardinalfish. The document provides useful updates on Indonesia's population surveys and actions taken to conserve and manage this species. We support Indonesia's efforts and we support most of the recommendations. However, the North American region has some concerns about the wording on the recommendation in subparagraph 7b and 7c of this document as currently drafted. We invite Indonesia and the Animals Committee to consider the following changes to these subparagraphs. In subparagraph 7b, we recommend replacing the word ensure with the word promote. In the same subparagraph, we recommend replacing the words appendix species with the word appendices and striking the word the before Indonesian. These subparagraphs as amended would read as follows. Appreciate Indonesia's efforts which, as explained in this report, have been result in many positive outcomes of BCF protection, conservation, and management that promote its sustainable use. As BCF is not listed under the appendices, efforts on BCF conservation and management are regulated under Indonesian national laws, and so on. In subparagraph C, we recommend striking the phrase agree that BCF shall not be discussed further in future meetings, CITES meetings, and inserting the Animals Committee encourages Indonesia to continue its work to promote the conservation, management, and sustainable trade in BCF. We sincerely hope that these suggestions will be acceptable to our colleagues from Indonesia and the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you want me to read again?
Yes, please. Can you especially repeat the last part where you introduce a new sentence, and please do it slowly?
Sure. In subparagraph C, we recommend striking the phrase agree that BCF shall not be discussed further in future CITES meetings, and to insert the Animals Committee encourages Indonesia to continue its work to promote the conservation, management, and sustainable trade in BCF. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, North America, for this suggested change. Does any other observer party want to take the floor on this issue? I don't see any party asking for the floor. I see UK. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge the clear progress already made by Indonesia in response to Decision 18263, even though these measures might take some time to come to fruition, and we recognise the current status of Bangai cardinalfish as a non-CITES species. We support the suggested amendments to paragraph 7C of document 31 Rev 1. And we also support the suggestion of the EU that this species could be considered as a case study of good practice at any future workshop after COP19 under agenda item 36 on marine ornamental fish. And we hope that Indonesia might be able to engage in such a workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like shortly to open the floor for observer organizations. I see Fondation Franz Weber. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This statement is provided on behalf of Fondation Franz Weber, SSN, and 9 other organizations that will be posted on the chat. We thank Indonesia for preparing this document. However, we remain extremely concerned for the survival of this highly endangered species. While we appreciate the designation of a marine protected area, recent population surveys suggest that the general population trend for the fish remains negative and conservation measures adopted are inadequate. Many core no-take zones in the marine protected area are not within the main area of distribution of the fish. Furthermore, the utilization zones are often adjacent to the core zone, making capture in the no-take zone very probable. There are, to this day, no effective protections for the microhabitat, including sea urchins and sea anemones, which is a critical component of the fish habitat. Moreover, population surveys must be expanded to include more sites. As to the take of the species, seasonal capture prohibitions are not adequate as the species can breed year-round. And any quota must also consider the high mortality during capture and transit. Overall, according to Indonesian conservationists on the ground, while regulations have been issued, they remain largely unimplemented. Given these issues, we recommend that the Animals Committee retain the species on its agenda and, in the absence of a listing of the species on the CITES appendices at COP19, approve new decision text at the COP asking Indonesia to conduct a more comprehensive study, disclose export data, mortalities and evidence of illegal trade, detailed production from any captive breeding facilities, and clarify regulations governing the capture of the species within existing marine protected area. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Fondation Franz Weber. And I will take one last intervention by Ornamental Fish International. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of our members based in 30 countries worldwide, the European Pet Organization and its national member organizations in 10 European countries, Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council USA, and Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council Canada. We have followed and support the efforts of Indonesia in managing the wild populations of the Bangai cardinalfish and appreciate the success in ensuring sustainability of trade. Furthermore, we also support that the species is removed from future CITES meeting agendas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So with this, I think I would shortly turn back to Indonesia to ask if the changes that have been suggested are agreeable to Indonesia so that we can close that agenda item. So Indonesia, would you please take the floor that we can hear your feedback?
Thank you. Yes, upon consultation with other members of the Indonesian delegation, we agree with the suggested amendments by AC members from North America. And we also thank EU and the UK for the comments. Indonesia will be more than happy to share our experience in PCF protection, conservation, and management in workshops related to ornamental, marine ornamental fish and other workshops. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you very much. So with this, I would conclude that the Animals Committee welcomes the progress report from Indonesia and endorses the recommendations in paragraph 7 of AC 31, Doc 31, Ref 1 in plenary, with the amendments made by North America in the discussions that have been captured by the Secretariat. So with this, I would conclude that agenda item, and we can move on to agenda item 14. And in the interest of time, I will pull the two agenda items together. It's two publications of reports by Malaysia. One is the publication of a management report for common water monitors, Varanus salvator in peninsular Malaysia, and the other one is a management report for reticulated pythons in peninsular Malaysia. I would like to give the floor to Malaysia to introduce these two documents so that we can then start the discussion. So I'm asking Malaysia to take the floor. So Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, Malaysia welcomes the opportunity to present its wildlife management plan for the common water monitor and as well as for the reticulated python to the CITES committee. For the common water monitors, it is rare to travel in Peninsular Malaysia without seeing the Asian water monitors. They are habitat and diet generalists, live around villages and people's homes, are very common in natural forests as well as agricultural lands, even in sites where harvesting for trade has taken place for 30 years or more. In several parts of Malaysia, this species is considered overabundant and is culled due to its human-wildlife conflict. As seen in the report, Malaysia has conducted surveys to establish the density of lizards in different habitats with a focus on those sites subject to harvesting in Peninsular Malaysia. Based on the lowest estimates derived for any habitat in any site, Malaysia has calculated a sustainable offtake rate. As a precautionary approach, Malaysia is proposing a quota of 120,000 skins per year, which is approximately 35,000 skins lower than the conservative offtake estimates. The NDF report presented provides details of the ongoing monitoring and adaptive management approach Malaysia uses to monitor and regulate trade to ensure sustainability, which is constantly improving over time. In addition, Malaysia's management and monitoring systems are significantly robust and address and control the whole supply chain of the related trade. Finally, Malaysia notes the information document submitted by the EU with the comments of the Malaysian NDF report. Malaysia acknowledges that additional scientific information for this species is necessary, and we shall continue to improve the data collection. Nonetheless, we feel that the existing data that we have provided is found sufficient to establish the non-detrimental value nature of the trade of this species from Malaysia. In response to the specific comments received, Malaysia will offer a point-to-point reply. We kindly ask that parties consider this response for their assessment. We invite the parties for other relevant stakeholders to review the management report for the water common monitor and offer informed thoughts to improve Malaysia's management system. As for the Please bear with me. As for the reticulated python, Malaysia wishes to draw the attention of the EU and the Animals Committee to the fact that in 2017, the Animals Committee approved an NDF for exports of reticulated python for Peninsular Malaysia as part of the review of the significant trade process. At that time, the quota was set at 155 skins annually. Based on our submitted NDF, which is the document in discussion now, as at 2019, no evidence of reduced abundance or unsustainable harvest have been detected since 2017, and reticulated pythons are still commonly encountered and captured from the same areas as 4 years ago. Therefore, the proposed quota of 121,000 is deemed sustainable and non-detrimental to the population of the species. Malaysia hopes that the report is acceptable, and we welcome comments and suggestions to this effect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Malaysia, for your introduction. So I would now pass the floor to the members of the Animals Committee who are asked to report to comment on paragraph 7 of the report that invites the Animals Committee to look at these reports and make recommendations as appropriate. So I see Europe has asked for the floor. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me first of all thank Malaysia for presenting these documents to the Animals Committee. And it's obvious that they have made enormous efforts to put them together. And the EU has been in contact with Malaysia for many years and working together. The views differ sometimes, but the cooperation is really constructive. At the same time, still there are some concerns about the quotas and whether they are not set up too high. And this is why it is a bit unclear what would be the status of the documents if they are noted by the Animals Committee, whether it means agreement to the quota which are proposed in the documents, while at the same time we are suggesting that the Animals Committee members and parties still continue commenting on the management approaches and bring additional views. Therefore, we would rather suggest that either there is an in-depth review of the documents in an in-session working group, which may be a bit difficult because of the capacities and the workload, or these documents are brought forward as examples of NDFs to the planned NDF workshop, which we will also discuss later on. And this could be really a good example of species which are traded in high numbers, in numbers which are getting close to the carrying capacity of the population, and where there may be concerns. So a proper discussion might be really a good way forward to consider how to set up the quotas where they are at their upper limit. Meanwhile, it might be better to slightly amend the draft recommendation so that the Animals Committee would note and appreciate the effort by Malaysia in making the NDF, and would propose that Malaysia presents their documents to the NDF workshop for further assessment. Finally, let me mention that in the document by Malaysia on Phyton reticulatus, there is a minor mistake which the EU has already brought to the attention of Malaysia, so we hope that can be corrected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Europe. Any other members of the Animals Committee asking for the floor? We have a proposed way forward by the representative from Europe. I don't see any other member asking for the floor, so I would open the floor for observer parties. I see Germany and then Botswana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, we would like to thank Malaysia for the effort in establishing NDFs for skins in these two reptile species. That's really highly appreciated. And we would like to support the comments made by the representative of Europe and would like to share 2 points on either of the species shortly. So regarding Varano salvator, we are of the view that Malaysia has demonstrated in their NDF that current trade is somewhat sustainable. Having said that, we are not in a position to confirm at the moment that a substantial quota increase of about 44% will have no impact on the population and will be still detrimental. And also considering that the mean export levels during the last years, as presented by Malaysia, were about half of the amount of the proposed quota. So in our view, the most important thing is that Malaysia continues the monitoring in regular intervals in the future, and we would appreciate to learn how Malaysia is planning to identify and react quickly to potential changes in the population size or structure that could result from a potential quota increase. And with respect to Malayopiton reticulatus, we agree that the species is widely distributed, that it's locally abundant, and we also acknowledge that the applied slaughterhouse monitoring, I just call it slaughterhouse monitoring, is generally a very useful monitoring tool. However, as long as this monitoring is not linked to field data, it is not able to detect local changes in the population size and structure in the event that they occur. So it lags a bit behind. And we therefore feel it is necessary to combine this slaughterhouse monitoring also in the future with field data, either by dedicated surveys or by provision of more information on exact capture locality, time and effort spent by collectors and so on. So there are many possibilities. And this may also be reached by the implementation of the presented online database system, which is, to our understanding, however, still in a kind of a testing phase, but seems quite promising to us. And so altogether, we feel that there is more detailed discussions warranted to conclude finally on this proposed quotas, and we therefore also highly support the proposal by the European representative to address this topic in the planned NDF workshop, and also considering that trade in reptile skins for the leather industry is not limited to Malaysia. And so we believe that these 2 NDFs may provide great examples and a good starting point for other parties, helping them compiling similar NDFs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Germany. I would give the floor to Indonesia now.
We thank Malaysia for submitting the NDF report on the Asian monitor lizard and reticulated python. Indonesia would like to inform the Animal Committee members and other delegates that both of these species are also live in Indonesia. Indonesia itself also exports skin of these species. Based on our field research, Indonesia confirmed that despite harvesting, these species remain common, abundant in our country, which has been confirmed by scientific research and monitoring. Both species rapidly grow and reach sexual maturity, have high reproduction output, and thrive in the human-disturbed habitats, and they are also dietary generalists. Report for both species by Malaysia share similar monitoring and management methodologies by Indonesia. We can confirm that robustness of this system. In the nutshell, Indonesia welcomes this document and support recommendation to the Animal Committee made by Malaysia, including the proposed quota. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. I open the floor for UK. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to be brief, the UK would like to acknowledge Malaysia's efforts in undertaking these management reports for both Varana salvador and reticulated python, and we really welcome these reports and find them very useful. We support their publication on the CITES website by the Secretariat, and we also propose that these could present really useful case studies for the non-detriment finding Technical Advisory Committee to consider, as planned for under Agenda 14.1 NDF workshop, and as already recommended by the European representative. We have reviewed the information provided, and the UK is of the opinion that the systems in place by Malaysia do provide confidence that the proposed quotas are suitable and sustainable, considering both species life histories and their biological capabilities to withstand high levels of harvest. That harvesting is well regulated, quotas managed under the adaptive management system by Malaysia, and so overall the UK would support the proposed quotas for both Varana salvador and reticulated python. And we are pleased that Malaysia has requested feedback and will be happy to provide a more detailed response directly to Malaysia. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. I have the United States.
Thank you. The United States would like to thank Malaysia for their informative management report, and we would also like to align ourselves with the comments made by the representative from Europe, specifically regarding bringing this to the non-detriment workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, United States. I have Canada. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. To be brief, we would align ourselves with the comments made by the United Kingdom. We thank Malaysia for the preparation of the report for common water monitors and can support the Animals Committee notice document. We did hear a comment, I believe, on having an in-session working group, but we proposed that the preferred alternative approach would be to provide comments and feedback to Malaysia as they have suggested. And we would also support the recommendation that this would be a good case study for the NDF workshop. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada. And two more short interventions, I hope. Austria.
Thank you, Chair. We thank Malaysia for bringing the NDF document up for discussion at the Animals Committee and appreciate the efforts Malaysia has undertaken to gather data for Varanus salvata and Malaya python reticulatus. However, in the case of Malaya python, the approach to manage a high volume trade without scientific information about the actual population size can be devastating, can have devastating consequences, not only on the species itself, but also on the whole ecosystem in which this giant snake is at the top predator. Gathering population data can be a challenge in some species, but when about 100 to 200,000 specimens are caught every year for export, it is not comprehensible that assessing the population size with tried and tested capture-recapture methods is not possible. Regarding Varanus salvata, we consider the approach taken for making an NDF practicable, but there are important issues which reduce the reliability of the results. For example, the distance over which monitors are attracted to baits is practically unknown and has a very important influence on the current population estimates. This and other remaining shortcomings of the NEF are solvable challenges, but they have to be addressed because they have a very strong influence on the estimated sustainable offtake rates. As past trade in Varanus salvator from Malaysia was very high, it can be assumed that the quota will be fulfilled. And in this respect, we consider it prudent to first solve all these problems, especially in the technical surrounding of an NDF workshop, before raising the quota to even higher levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Austria, and finally Switzerland, and then I will revert back to Malaysia to see what they take out of this discussion so far. So Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, we would like to thank Malaysia for these extensive reports and for the opportunity to discuss them. For Varanus salvator, it is evident from the report that a conservative approach has been adopted, and the export quota which is being proposed is not only below what is estimated to be the maximum sustainable harvest quota, but also based on export numbers from previous years, it is not likely that the set quota will be exhausted. We especially see value in the continuous harvest and field monitoring, that is a sustainable and practical approach involving local harvesters. With regards to the reticulated python, the report indicated why there has been a shift in methods over the last decade, since the more traditional field population monitoring did not provide a robust basis for assessing the impact of harvesting on wild populations. We believe that there is an enormous value in being able to analyze the data derived from specimens that are effectively being collected for trade, rather than utilizing data collected during catch-release census. The annual export quota for the reticulated python set by Malaysia is considerably below what has been identified as sustainable off-trade. We therefore believe that both reports fully respect the obligations under Article 4 of the Convention. Both species can be considered to be very common and widespread in the country. And even though it might be scientifically interesting to have more detailed information on the biology and the dynamics of the population, in order to assess whether trade is detrimental to the survival of these two species, the data presented by Malaysia are more than sufficient. We also have to bear in mind what kind of signal the committee would be sending if in a situation of a very common and widespread species, we would ask so much more from an NDF. We further believe that the approach would make for a good case study and would like to encourage Malaysia to present their work at any upcoming workshop on non-detriment findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. So I would revert back to Malaysia for their comments on what they have heard so far. So Malaysia, you have the floor.
Receive, and thank you. I think I would like to make respond to Switzerland, especially thank you for the support given to us. Specifically, we have a concern about putting too much data that probably is not helpful to the further understanding of the NDF. However, the stand that we take in Malaysia is that we continuously improve the NDF study, and in Malaysia itself, we have created a conservation trust fund to fund NDF studies, not only for these two reptiles, however, for also other species. We thank EU, Germany, the US, Canada, and Austria, and the UK for suggesting for Malaysia to join the NDF report, the NDF workshop. And we welcome that suggestion, and we look forward to share our NDF study as case studies for the upcoming sessions. We take note of the other comments, and we shall revert, and we also welcome the direct comments that will be sent to us. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Malaysia, and thank you for your willingness to share the two documents at the planned workshop on NDF, which will certainly be a very important and illustrative example to look at and to further discuss. Having seen that we do not have consensus yet on whether the Animals Committee can agree on the quota being according to Article 4. I think I would suggest that the Animals Committee notes the document and encourages Malaysia to present the two case studies at the upcoming workshop where the questions raised can be discussed and solved, and then maybe reviewed by the Animals Committee at a later stage. So that's my way forward, proposed way forward, and I hope you can all agree on that. I look for comments now from the Animals Committee members on that proposed way forward. I don't see any. I see Europe. You have asked for the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. We have a very, very interesting discussion, and I don't want to prolong it. It's mostly about slightly reformulating the first recommendation. So maybe there could be a small, not even a working, but more drafting group to agree on exact wording of the recommendation. In a way, noting the document somehow still may send an impression that what is in the document has been agreed. But in principle, I think we all agree that the work is to be appreciated, the effort of Malaysia is to be appreciated, and the discussion needs to continue. So I think a quick discussion between Malaysia and a few interested parties could bring us quickly to a good wording. Thank you.
Thank you, Europe. Well, if the Animals Committee notes a document, it doesn't approve it, it doesn't endorse it, it notes that it has seen it and it has discussed it. So in my view, it doesn't really endorse the contents of it, but I would seek other comments from members if we do need a drafting group to work on recommendations. I open the floor for comments from members if they see a need in having a drafting group. Or observer parties who would like to give their views on this matter. Well, I see IUCN has asked for the floor. Yes, IUCN, you have the floor.
We had just a brief intervention to make about both documents. So firstly, with water monitors, we welcomed the NDF report on management of trade in monitor lizards from Peninsular Malaysia. Asian water monitors are widely distributed throughout Southeast Asia and remain abundant in most parts of their range. This species has benefited from land use change and human resource subsidies. It's common in towns, cities, and oil palm plantations, and is listed as least concern on the IUCN Red List. The NDF document clearly illustrates that harvesting of water monitors occurs primarily on only 18% of Peninsular Malaysia's land area, targets a limited size cohort, and surveys show that monitor lizards remain abundant even in heavily harvested sites. Malaysia's population estimates appear to be conservative, and the adaptive management and monitoring systems in place appear sufficiently robust to detect and address future declines if they occur. As with any scientific-based wildlife management system, more information about the biology of the species and impacts of harvesting would be desirable. Some areas of Malaysia's NDF would benefit from this, including information on regional trade dynamics, and we extend an offer to support Malaysia on the NDFs by facilitating technical assistance, detailed feedback and suggestions for follow-up studies from IUCN experts. And we have a similar intervention to make on pythons, but I don't know if that's enough for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ayusen. I think that it's clear that the same would have been said on python. So now I would like to turn to North America. Ezekiel, you have the floor.
Chairman, in this case, for both documents, we're noting the document, so we don't see a need for any intersessional drafting work. We appreciate the Malaysia's work on this, and we look forward to revise these documents maybe in the next workshop on non-determined findings. So by noting doesn't mean we are endorsing any document. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, North America. I tend to agree. That's also my reading of it. So I think I would propose that the Animals Committee notes the document and encourages Malaysia to submit these two examples at the upcoming workshop on NDF, and have as a case study for deliberation there. So I think that's what I would propose, and I don't see anybody opposing to this way forward. So with this, I would close this item and would move on to the next item, which is agenda item 29 on leopards. Document AC31 Doc 29.1 outlines progress on the implementation of decisions 18254 and 255 on the review of the roadmap for the conservation of the leopards in Africa, and presents recommendations by one of the Animals Committee co-leads for leopards in annex to the document. Bearing these recommendations in the annex in mind, I invite the members to agree on recommendations concerning the aspects of the roadmap that relate to the implementation of CITES. I would like to give the floor to Pantaleon as the co-lead from Africa, as the AC co-lead on leopards, who prepared the draft recommendations to outline the recommendations in the annex to the document, and then open the floor for comments. So Africa, Pantaleon, you have the floor.
If people could go to the addendum 2. Yeah, basically, letters were written to some of the range countries regarding decision 18.165, look at their hunting quotas as contained in an earlier resolution of COP16. In 2020, Botswana and Ethiopia provided information.
Sorry, Pantaleon. We are not at the item on leopard quotas, hunting quotas. We are on document 29.1 on the roadmap for the conservation of the leopard in Africa.
Sorry, Chair.
It's the annex to 29.1 where you make some recommendations, and it's these that I ask you to shortly present. The annex 1 to document AC31 29.1, the annex.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. The recommendations to this committee, or the findings, are that we find that the roadmap for the conservation of the leopard in Africa was well researched and well written. There were a few modifications that we thought could be made. On page 49 of that roadmap, under threats, we had habitat loss and fragmentation. We thought that one other factor could be considered. For example, conversion of savannas and woodlands to other land uses. You find in certain places plantations of pine and cypress and other forms of commercial agriculture are replacing savannas and woodlands. And this makes the habitat unfavorable because it reduces prey populations for leopards. So we thought that was something that needed to be included. And on page 57, we felt that we ought to have another sub-activity, which we actually thought could be an overarching module on sociology and social work. Because sometimes practitioners do not understand how society operates. So we might have well-intentioned interventions costing a lot of money, but not having the desired outcomes. So we thought that we need to include a module in sociology and social work, but just to understand why humans decide to do what they do. Because oftentimes we come up with interventions that don't give us the desired outcome after spending a lot of money. And then the last one was the fact that whereas there was something about funding, there was, I didn't see a specific reference to funding for assessing monitoring of populations of leopards. Now, as you can imagine, leopards occur in countries that are generally poor. So, to expect them to be able to monitor populations of leopards is, I would say, far-fetched, because it's unlikely that they will be able to do it. And so, if you're going to help these countries, we need to be a bit more specific on where they could obtain funding to undertake monitoring. Monitoring is a very tricky subject, because people say, well, why would I spend resources on monitoring, and for what purpose? And so I think we need to have something there mentioned, specified in the roadmap about possible sources of funding for this monitoring activity in the range states. Because if you talk of cooperation could be anything. But we need to be specific about the funding so that these range states can actually say, okay, let's write our proposal and direct it to this organization or that country or whatever to help monitoring support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Panta, for this introduction. I would just like to remind everyone that we have 18 minutes left, so I will have to be quite short on these issues we have to look at. I would open the floor now to members of the Animals Committee, just reminding them what we had to do. Our work was to review the roadmap for the conservation of leopard in Africa and provide comments to IUCN and range countries on that roadmap. So I would open the floor for comments from members of the Animals Committee. I don't see any members asking for the floor. I see a range of, I see Europe. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Matthias. In principle, we support the way forward. I would like to welcome in particular adding habitat alternation as a threat. At the same time, it was a little bit unclear what exactly this additional chapter about sociology and social work should comprise. So a little bit more detail on that would be welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Europe. So any other member of the Animals Committee wanting to take the floor? I don't see anybody. So observer parties, I see Kenya has asked for the floor. Kenya has taken itself off the list, so I would like to ask Botswana to take the floor.
Apologies for slow connectivity. But due to the fact that some language in this document does need to be updated, we propose that the roadmap be proposed until AC 32. Indeed, the document itself contains some areas of concern to Botswana, including, for instance, text on historical decline, management practices, and distribution. It's also important to include, to note that hunting needs to be revised. The section on hunting needs to be revised to show that the role of hunting within management needs to be better captured. We all know that hunting provides habitat, prey-based, as well as poaching control in countries such as Botswana, where it is used as a conservation tool. Furthermore, Botswana is not party to CMS and as such cannot endorse or agree to the fact that leopard are migratory. Because the simple dispersal of subadult individuals across borders does not and should not be confounded with migration. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Botswana. Any other observer party asking for the floor? I don't see anybody, so I would also like to give the floor now to CMS Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair, and hello to all. The CMS Secretariat would like to thank the Animals Committee, and in particular Mr. Kasoma's work on the Leopard Roadmap, which is another document prepared within the context of the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative. Like the guidelines for the lion, this document will be reviewed by the CMS Scientific Council, and we will make sure that the suggestions made in this committee will be incorporated in the version being discussed by the Scientific Council at its upcoming session. Just like for the guidelines for the lion, the CMS Secretariat suggests that the respective COPs consider these documents to be discussed within the context of the African Carnivores Initiative range state meetings in order to avoid back and forth between the scientific bodies of both conventions in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CMS. I see Zimbabwe has asked for the floor.
Botswana in the document 20 with reference to feedback on issues raised in the document 17. And we fully support this proposed way forward and recommendations therein. And thank you.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. Sorry, I didn't quite understand what you were referring to. Maybe you started talking before I could hear you. So please give the floor to Zimbabwe again to explain exactly.
Chair, can you read me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I was saying Zimbabwe aligns itself with the propositions and response presented by Botswana in document 20 with reference to feedback on issues raised in document 17. And we fully support the proposed way forward and recommendations therein. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zimbabwe. I think you are referring to lions, and we are talking about leopards now. But I yes, Secretariat, did you understand?
I believe that Zimbabwe makes an intervention on the next item on leopards and is referring to information document 20, which was just published on the CITES website.
Okay.
And that's an information document submitted by Botswana.
Yeah, yes, I know. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. We are not there yet. We are talking about the roadmap, but from what I get from the comments, I do think we cannot discuss the roadmap now here at this meeting, and I would therefore suggest, as has been proposed, to submit decisions to the COP, or where do I have to make them? I would have to, the Animals Committee would have to submit these decisions to the COP, I suppose, and they would basically repeat the work we have to do, which is the one decision would be directly to the Secretariat. The Secretariat shall share with the Animals Committee the roadmap for the conservation of the leopard in Africa by the IUCN for its review, and directly to the Animals Committee. The Animals Committee shall review the roadmap for the conservation of the leopard in Africa by IUCN and make recommendations as appropriate concerning the aspect of it that relate to the implementation of CITES. So it's a repetition of the decisions we had so far. I would propose that way forward because I don't think we will have the chance to really review them at this meeting. And for the suggestion of CMS to try to include this roadmap into the deliberations of the ACI, we don't have really the mandate to do that, because we just have to review this roadmap. But what we could do is make the recommendations from the working group available to IUCN and the ACI range states for their consideration. I think that's what we can do right now. So that's my suggested way forward, that we submit these two decisions to COP in our reporting and make recommendations from the working group available to IUCN and the ACI range states. So that's my suggested way forward here. I don't see anybody asking for the floor, so I take that this way forward is acceptable to everyone, and that's what the Animals Committee will therefore has decided. So I would now like to go to document 29.2. It's quotas for leopard hunting trophies, and it is AC 31 Doc 29.2 and its addendum. So the document and its annexes present information from Botswana, Central African Republic and Ethiopia on their review of their leopard hunting quotas contained in Resolution Conf 1014, RevCop 16, on quotas for leopard hunting trophies and skins for personal use. These range states were asked to consider whether their quotas are set at levels which are non-detrimental to the survival of the species in the wild. We are invited to consider the information provided by these 3 leopard range states and, if necessary, make recommendations. The Animals Committee has, in the time before this meeting here, have reviewed the information provided by these 3 countries, and the discussion points have been put in an INF document, which has been produced by myself and has been submitted to the Animals Committee pretty shortly before the meeting. And basically what the conclusions of the Animals Committee are on these 3 documents and the recommendations. The Animals Committee considered that the proposed reduction of the quota for Ethiopia from 200 leopards to 20 leopard hunting trophies and skins for personal use is reasonable and not detrimental to the survival of the species and can therefore be supported. Concerning the proposed retention of the quota for leopards from Central African Republic, the Animals Committee considered that the quota of 40 leopard hunting trophies and skins for personal use seems to be high, but still not detrimental to the survival of the species in the wild and can therefore be supported as well. Concerning the proposed retention of the quota for leopards from Botswana, the Animals Committee had some questions that were raised, and these can be summarized as follows. In reference to the most recent national population estimate of 4,295 leopards, the quota of 130 animals represents nearly 3% of the total population. This most recent estimate is based on available habitat rather than on actual counts of animals. It is unclear from the proposal what considerations were taken into account to determine what constitutes good habitat for leopards. And the planned leopard census in 2020 could not be conducted, so recent population estimates based on counting of animals are not available. The lack of population estimates and no information on prey base, both objectives of the roadmap for the conservation of leopards in Africa, make it difficult to reach conclusions on cause and effect of some of the points raised in the proposal. It is unclear from Botswana's review whether age and sex restrictions on leopards killed will be imposed, which is known to have an important impact on population dynamics. It also remains unclear how far the current hunting quotas differ from the proposed export quota. Specifically, information is not provided on spatial allocation of the quotas and on the total hunting quotas, as well as on how frequently and on which basis they are being set and adjusted. And lastly, it is unclear if skulls of trophies are still being measured as further monitoring tool, as the report only shows data until 2007. So this means that we do have quite some questions in the committee that were raised, and that we would then ask Botswana maybe to clarify. And I think that has been done in an INF document that was published today. But for now, I would like to ask the Animals Committee to give me its views on these documents. I mean, it has been produced by the Animals Committee, and if the Animals Committee would like to make further comments, then I would open the floor for Animals Committee members, and I see North America has asked for the floor.
You can hear me. In principle, we agree with your suggestions on quotas for Ethiopia and Central African Republic. We have now document if 20, as you said, from Botswana in response to the observations made by the Animals Committee in Doc Inf 17. In this regard, we know that Botswana has maintained a quota of 130 individuals, but this quota has not been met in any occasion. According to Doc Inf, no harvest has been carried out in recent years, and it's not until 21 that only 50 individuals were authorized. Considering this, and with the understanding that monitoring and adaptive management is being done in order to reinforce the scientific basis for the establishment of leopard NDFs in this country, we believe the quota can be accepted by the Animals Committee. We will appreciate that Botswana keeps the Animals Committee informed about the progress of the studies and to adjust the quota based on results obtained. That said, the quota be consistent with national utilization and international demand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, North America. Before I give the floor to Europe, I would like to ask the interpreters if they can keep us working some more 10 minutes so that we can finish that agenda item.
Yes, Chair, that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you very much for your support. So I would give the floor to Europe. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Let me start by saying that we support the quotas as have been proposed by the three countries. Regarding Ethiopia, let me refer to the fact that there are some data, there are some management measures in place, such as restriction to old males, quota setting, etc. However, the knowledge about the distribution and the current population status is very poor. Therefore, we appreciate the proposal of quota of 20 individuals, which combined with the average export of 1 trophy per year provides certain reassurance of sustainability, and we encourage Ethiopia to further improve their management and monitoring. Regarding Central African Republic, it seems that also the proposed quota is sustainable, even though it's based on the knowledge of population in Chinoko, while there is very little information on population data from other regions. Now on Botswana, this was discussed among the Animals Committee members, and I have brought to the attention of the Animals Committee members the concern that decreasing quota might lead to reduced financing for conservation because of lowered number of permits, which is of course important, in particular in this current period when tourism has really declined. So we really appreciate additional information by Botswana, which seems to have responded to many of the questions raised by the Animals Committee members, including on the current hunting quota, which is 50, and answers on sex and age restrictions. And therefore, we would suggest to support their proposal of 130 hunting trophies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Europe. Any other member of the Animals Committee wanting to take the floor? I see Oceania. Oceania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I had no issues at all with the case with Ethiopia and Central African Republic. I felt that the new quota, or the confirmation of the Central African Republic quota, was conservative and represented probably less than 1% of the estimated population, or well under 1% of the estimated populations. And therefore the quota for Botswana stood out as being somewhat different, being around about 3% of the national population estimate. Now, realize that there has not been a recent population census or collation of what the possible population is, and I recognize that it is often very difficult to get a good population estimate, but the original quota that Botswana had of 130 animals per annum was based on a population estimate which was about 20 or 30% higher than it is now. And so in those days it represented 2% of the population per annum, whereas the new quota at 130 represents now 3% of the national population. So it's certainly not conservative in the same way that the Ethiopia and Central African Republic ones were. And so I still have some concerns that that the 3% is too high, certainly until that survey is done next year, I believe, 2022, and that would provide a much stronger basis for knowing where a safe and sustainable quota should be set. The fact that a quota has not been met to date, so we've never had more than around 50 or 60 animals per annum harvested when the quota was 130 is irrelevant. The quota in an NDF should be what is sustainable, and so if the population's gone down or the new estimate of the total population is lower than it was in 2004, then the quota should also be lower, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Oceania. Do I hear any other input from members of the Animals Committee? Then I would open the floor for, I see Central, South America and Caribbean. Daniel, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I will be as brief as possible given the time. I wish to say that we agree with the proposal just made by Oceania. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Central, South America and the Caribbean. I see Kenya has asked for the floor. Doesn't seem to work for Kenya, but I think it's more important now to hear Botswana, who is one that is concerned with this quota that we are deliberating. So Botswana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The first point from our end is that we had submitted a review in June 2020, and so we were surprised to get an info note 17 a day before the present meeting. So we only had very limited time to respond, but we have provided written submissions at Info 20. It's important to note that Botswana's quota has always been set very low and conservatively, and has always been between 2 and 4%, which is considered in the scientific literature as sustainable. Mr. Chair, in Botswana, we use adaptive management, including employing tools such as management-oriented monitoring system, problem animal control, aerial surveys, and traditional knowledge to set elephant quota. In addition, all hunting in Botswana for leopards is done by a professional hunter in the presence of a Department of Wildlife National Park escort. to ensure that the correct gender and age of leopards are hunted. We promote hunting of adult males and penalize hunting of females and young males. And so we have also mandatory the collection of a database to show, to measure the skull, and that shows steady hunting of adult males, that data set. It's also noteworthy to note that Botswana has not hunted leopards for almost a 10-year period since 2012. And so we can imagine that the population in that period would have increased rather than decreased. It's important to note that leopards are highly adaptable, and we anticipate that they are easily found in more than 90% of the land surface, which is more than 580,000 square kilometers. In fact, they are found even outside of the capital city, Gaborone. We've also got data sets that demonstrate that the prey base, including of antelopes, is satisfactory, as well as the diverse diet, including feeding on fish. And so the issue of prey is not a concern. We are developing a leopard management plan, which will be finalized in 2021. We also are one of the few countries after Namibia to develop a national survey of leopards. And this will be a robust science-based framework that would also involve local communities, so that the aspirations for use of leopards is also factored. And this work will start in 2022. In concluding, Mr. Chair, Botswana has an adaptive management in place, and the internal quotas are managed using data gathered from the field, as well as monitoring. Chair, Botswana wishes that its export quota is maintained at 130 leopards, and to continue to manage its internal quota adaptively. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Botswana. I do have a question back to you. If we, as you have seen, the Animals Committee is not in agreement. We have half of the people who have taken the floor supporting retaining the quota, and the other half saying we need more information, maybe lower the quota. So would it be a possible suggestion that we suggest to the standing committee to send the decision that we still have now after COP19, that would be then 2023, when the next Animals Committee will be, where we can then revisit the whole issue, when you will have actual census data, when you will have put in place that management plan for the Animals Committee to consider at that time. And for the moment, we will not change anything. We cannot recommend anything to the standing committee because we haven't reached a decision. Would that be a way forward that you could agree on? Botswana, could you please take the floor? Yes, Botswana.
I have to start with Chair, maybe slightly disagreeing with the fact that it was a 50-50 split. My understanding was that the concern from Oceania was perhaps that there'd been a decline in the 10-year period, or comparing to what had been submitted in the review. I thought that was the only concern I picked. I thought the others were supportive, and in light of that, in the document that the info we posted this morning was just to demonstrate that the guess estimates in that survey on the basis of that, the code of 3% is within sustainable limits, and we anticipate that, in fact, the fact that we haven't hunted in nearly 10 years, we expect the population to have declined, which means that the actual offtake of 130 animals would translate to much lower than 3%. So on that basis, Chair, I'm not sure if I then understood your concern and whether that would change the 130 proposal that we've put before the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Botswana. I'm really mindful of time, and the way I understood the interventions by Oceania and the support from Central, South America and the Caribbean was that, in their view, the quota of 130 animals, in their view, based on what they know now, is too high. That is what they have, what was their view. But I'm being told that my time is up, that I have to close for today's session. I think we will have to revisit that, because otherwise I don't think we can reach a consensus right now. My proposal didn't catch up with Botswana, so I think we will have to look at it at the next time when we come together, which is on Monday the 21st, I think. So for this, I'm sorry that we couldn't conclude all the agenda items. There were issues we had to discuss and to raise. So with this, I would pass the floor to the Secretariat for any housekeeping matters. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is in relation to the working groups that you have established in this session. Some, as we mentioned, some organizations and parties have flagged in the chat that they would like to join, but were unable to. And so we added them to the working group membership. And these are the following: the working group on eels, Indonesia, Algeria, India, Animal Welfare Institute. The working group on sharks, Bloom Association, Hong Kong. And the working group on marine turtles, Kenya. I'll repeat that the chairs of these work groups, in consultation with the secretary, will reach out to work group memberships, and we will propose a way forward on how to operate next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So my last intervention is, I've been asked to confirm the working group chairs, so that we are all on the same page. Who will be chairing which working group? So for African lions, it will be the representative of Africa, Pantakasoma. Nomenclature is nomenclature ex-specialist Peter Paul. Appropriate and acceptable destination, it is co-chaired by myself and the representative of Europe, Dagmar Sikova. On vultures, it will be Ashgar, the representative of Asia. On eels, it will be representative of Europe, Dagmar Sikova. On sharks and rays, it will be Hugh Robertson, representative of Oceania. And on marine turtles, it will be a co-chairmanship between Arvin and Daniel Ramadori. So these are the working group chairs, just to remind everybody. So thank you very much to the interpreters for their indulgence, for keeping up with me. Sorry that I had to take so long. And with this, I think I will close the session, and we will reconvene on the 21st of June at the same time as we had now. Or is it the 22nd, Secretariat, just to be clear? 22nd. So we will reconvene on the 22nd to continue our work. So thank you very much, and have a nice day, evening, morning, night.
Yes.